And we went to the planetarium show. It was the last planetarium show of the day. And I think they were just showing... Was that the Sesame Street one?
The Sesame Street.
Yeah, they were doing...
The Chinese pig.
Yes. And the kids loved it. They had such a good time.
Not crispy pig.
Right. But the guy who was on the microphone, the MC that was on the microphone, he was a bigger guy. It sounded like he had run around the building before he came down here, because he's like, "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to the Children's Museum of Indianapolis."
That's just the way he talks. I've been to that show many times.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm like, "But buddy, do you need to see something like a lung specialist?" Because good Lord, like the man couldn't say 3 words without, and it wasn't even like he was just like regular breathing. It was like, I'm like, oh my.
He really likes Sesame Street.
Apparently,
Give that man some
Big Bird is my favorite. Hello, and thanks for joining us on the podcast that discusses all things gaming. Coming to you from the home of Gen Con and the gaming capital of the world, this is The Established Facts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 93 of The Established Facts. That's right, 93.
What's wrong with us? Why do we keep doing this?
I don't know. What I think is hilarious is sometimes it's hard for us to schedule, and then we're like, wow, we have so much free time that we can sit around the microphones for hours. Anyway, yes, welcome to episode 93. We are going to be discussing with you the awesomeness of exhibiting and attending conventions and holding conventions and running conventions.
It's all things convention.
All things convention. It's kind of a convention overview. We do a lot of these around this time of year because
all the conventions are happening in June and July.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Or just period.
Or just in general, yeah. I mean, and it's the springtime and things are kicking off with a bang, and so we have a lot of. Why am I being distracted by a teddy bear on the computer screen?
And heavy breathing. You're
easily distracted.
And heavy breathing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to.
I think that's some sort of a. No, I'm not even gonna go there.
Don't. Just step away.
Family show.
Right.
Family show.
So
we were talking about exhibitionism. Conventions.
Right.
And our rating just went away.
No, we were not.
There it went.
No, we were not.
Exhibitioning.
So we're going to go around the table and do introductions,
That's right.
Rags is
starting with the host.
This is Big Don on the mics in the host seat. And to my left,
Prime.
I'm Avital.
Hey guys, this is Derek.
Chris P. Bacon.
a.k.a.
Lance.
This is Josh.
And I'm Dr. Deb. And I'm sorry.
From the nation's capital via satellite.
Ragaar, a.k.a. Jeremy, and Mr. Teddy Bear today.
That's right.
That's right.
So because
For
of the
those of
audio-
you watching the YouTube video stream.
Exactly. And his dapper hat.
Yeah, the teddy bear, for everybody listening, it has a Indiana Jones hat over one ear, and it is a giant teddy bear with a bow tie.
He has a bow tie.
He has a
Yes,
bow.
he does.
That's not really a bow tie. That's
It's more of a bow, just
more
a bow.
just a bow.
It's a bow.
I'll send him a bow tie, okay?
Hey,
He needs a bow tie.
he needs
He
a bow
does
tie.
need a bow tie.
Because bow
Proper bow
ties
Are cool.
Are cool.
That's right. So yes, our versus topic for episode 93, talking about conventions, is and this is in the dawn of, and obviously we're recording it a little bit before we know for sure. However, Fear the Con 8 has been fully funded for its funding goal. There's some stretch goals there. I hope that everyone got an opportunity to help them out. I know this is supposedly the last one on schedule for now. Things may change. Who knows what happens? There might be a fan con put together, run by other people, giving the podcasters at Fear the Boot a little bit of stress relief. But
I told
for
Josh
now,
we were going to go to Missouri if they don't do something. I will bang on Chad's door and I will tell him.
right,
he's going
we'll
to
just
brunch
show
with
up a
us.
new booters and shooters.
That's
and-
right. It's we
I
do
don't
our own
know.
weight
Oh,
night.
don't shake your head. You know darn well that that's exactly what could happen.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
everyone
true.
would come
Show
out
up.
that weekend and be like, all right, where we're gaming.
We're here. We're
Right.
gaming.
Oh, sorry,
It wouldn't be like creepy
Sorry,
to
I-
bang on his door though.
Sorry, I mark out this weekend every year in June to come down to St. Louis and
And then play some games.
play some games.
How empty is your basement right now? Because
That's creepy. That's
what
creepy.
D&D does.
How empty is your basement right now? Well, other than the bodies, I mean, there's plenty of room for
we need
everybody
an
else.
ample supply of Funyuns and Mountain Dew, please.
So,
Why is it always Funyuns and Mountain Dew?
And beer.
I don't know. And
I hate Funyuns.
and beer. So, we're going to be doing a versus topic on ticket sales versus crowdfunding. And kind of the baseline for your opinion, I think we should do what is more successful? No. How about...
What do you prefer? Do you prefer
prefer
to?
to-
Okay, that works. That works. Do you prefer to be able to sponsor a convention? We actually had a convention last year, do a Kickstarter and fund it successfully and do very well, Indie PopCon. And so what they did was and very similar to what Fear the Con did, is they set a goal. If like normally you would pay $45 for a ticket if you came, we're going to go ahead and set one of the denominations for sponsorship at what the normal ticket price would be. Then they had some that were a little bit less. They had some that were a lot more. Their rewards were really good. So do you prefer crowdfunding and being able to maybe even pre-buy your ticket in, or at least help sponsor? I know that there are a lot of people that can't go to the conventions but still want to sponsor it because of their fandom or their love for the people that run it or what have you, versus showing up at the door or maybe even pre-ordering, similar to like Gen Con, your con pass or your con ticket for that. So let's go around the table. We will start with Josh Prime and tickets versus crowdfunding.
That's a good question. I'm just going to say crowdfunding over tickets.
Okay, so all the versus topics that I've had to talk about before have been relatively simple, but I am just going to be, from here on out, prepared for smiting because I'm like the eternal fence sitter.
Yeah, it was really
That
hard
just
for
means
me.
we're getting better about picking our versus
Yeah,
topics.
Yes.
it was really hard for me not to be a fence sitter, but I figure I might as well have one. So
Because, I mean, for me, I really think that it just really, really depends on the con, and that's very much so. Good things about
I can't just
both ways. So.
I'm going to say crowdfunding.
Tickets.
I'm actually going to go with tickets as well.
I'm going to go with tickets as well.
And Ragaar?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with crowdfunding.
This is going to be interesting because I was kind of with Josh on the whole fence side of things because I appreciate being able to sponsor and help develop, help get a con up off the ground with this crowdfunding feature. I didn't find out about PopCon until it was too late. And then Fear the Con, I've been glad to jump in and crowdfund. But on the other hand, to be completely honest, I like knowing the con's going to happen. So I'll buy the
that's
ticket.
true. Yeah.
So it's when I know that tickets are for sale, I know the con is going to happen.
That's true, but as far as the convention organizers are concerned, you just never know how many people are going to sign up with if you have tickets versus crowdfunding, which you know ahead of time that yes, you're going to make your money back.
Yeah.
Okay, so Avital, why are you sitting on the fence?
Oh, just because there are a lot of, okay, obviously, Gen Con doesn't need crowdfunding. Like, it's established. And there are some cons that can come into a city, although may not necessarily do that well, because the city has just had too many conventions in it that year. But they already have a name. They already have, people recognize, like, say, the Wizard World Comic Con that happened earlier, whenever that was this year in Indy. I didn't go.
Earlier this year.
That's
February.
right. We weren't able to make it either.
That's a name that people know, and they're probably not going to need crowdfunding. They probably could do it if they wanted to, but people are going to go. Like, they're going to, they're a name, they're going to get names of visitors and guests to come in. Crowdfunding is good for smaller conventions, obviously, like Fear the Con, which, while it is a super awesome convention, is not super big. Or if you really want to get something started up that just hasn't happened before, and you're probably not going to be able to just set that up unless you happen to have just some money, like, sitting around that you have no other use for, like a large chunk of money. Yeah, you probably don't have a large chunk of money sitting around, so the crowdfunding is probably even going to be necessary if you want to get something like that started. So.
Okay. Don, we didn't hear your answer.
I would have to say that I really love the idea of crowdfunding because I think that it really shows your support for what whomever wants to run that convention at that time is trying to do. Or we have a couple friends that are on a different podcast called Crit Confirm, and they do several crowdfunding events so that they can exhibit at different conventions. And I really love that idea. That's something that I would love for our podcast to be able to do is to have to have those opportunities. To crowdfund and have that. I know we have a ton of support from our listeners, and I love it. But having that financial support is something that not every podcast really has, and it's really cool to see when those listeners step up and say, you know what, not only do we really enjoy listening to this podcast, but we also want to see them at these events because we want other people to enjoy them just as much as we are. And I think that that's what crowdfunding does, is it's a multifaceted opportunity for people to show their support financially as well as just morally, just through their support of what their shows are and things like that. So I would have to say that ticket sales are really good. I would agree with Avital's definition for her opinion. Ticket sales are really good for cons that are already established. They're really good for attracting attention, because then you can have like big launch dates for tickets, and you can have pre-registration for tickets and things like that. You can give tickets away as part of like a draw for promotions. You can give them away corporately to different businesses to kind of promote their people and their employees to come and check out your thing. But very similar to Indie PopCon last year, they ran a standard time limit Kickstarter and said, we want to do this depending on how much we're able to raise. This is our first goal. Depending on how much we're able to raise, this will get bigger. The venue will get bigger. The people, that you guys want to see will get bigger.
We'll get bigger. Because this is America.
Because
that's all that we do is get bigger.
And it's Indiana, the home of double starch.
Exactly.
So it's really cool to be able to see things like that, to be backed and to be funded and to be run based on the already established popularity of your fan base. How much they really want to see something like this happen. Very similar to games and books and movies and things like that that get crowdfunded. You already know these people love this idea so much that they want to put their own money forward just to see it completed. That's not even, like the Veronica Mars thing was a freak of nature at first. And it wasn't even just the fact that they were able to raise enough money to put the movie together but also that they were able to then have marketing to people for being the largest grossing Kickstarter at that time. That's already a big promotional jump for them. And that's not even counting the amount of ticket sales that they have once the movie's done. And I just think that that's a really cool thing with, Indie PopCon saying, we want to run this convention, or Fear the Con saying, we want to run this convention because we know that there is a need for this to happen. But in order for it to happen, we don't have $8,000 in our pocket to be able to run this. So we need your help, and we need your support. And if you're willing to do that, we are willing to put the work in to actually get it done. So, Brian?
I was going to say, the original reasoning behind why I was saying that I feel like I prefer the crowdfunding over ticket sales is because, well, when it comes to me, I don't really manage money well, obviously. And so when it comes to like buying tickets at the door, it's a lot easier when I already know, okay, well, I'm already getting in for free, and I can focus my money on the things that I really want to focus it on, which is, maybe going over to vendors and buying products, or, whatever else I'm going to be doing over the weekend. That's
pre-ordering tickets will give you that option as well.
Yeah, but the problem with pre-ordering tickets is the fact of, in certain situations where your tickets are at will call, and for whatever technical difficulties they're having, it takes you an extra hour and a half to get your tickets because for whatever reason your name isn't showing up on the, in their system.
Receipt.
Because I've heard horror stories about that with Gen Con and stuff.
The same thing. I mean, you run the same risk with a crowdfunding of a free, I've put this much money, you get a free ticket. They still have to put it in the system, and someone could still fat finger that.
Yeah, well, from but I feel like another thing though, another counterpoint is if you're talking about a convention like Awesome Con, or you're talking about a convention like even Gen Con, there's going to be panels of famous people, people are going to need signatures or whatever, and that kind of needs to be set in stone as to whether or not you're having the convention in order to, book these certain people that you need to get autographs for, or that you want to be there to go and give their autograph, that kind of stuff. So, I mean,
that's true.
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot more to add to that element of it, other than I'm really excited about Fear the Con. I think we keep bringing that up, and especially glad that it looks like they've hit their main goal. They got a couple days left, so I'm hoping to release this tomorrow, but we'll see how time works out.
So
but
today, for you future people.
Yeah, right. And that was a great way to handle it for them, because the con itself was ran by a smaller group of individuals. I know you mentioned con size being an element here,
right.
But I think a lot of it ends up being who's running it from a business perspective. Gen Con would never need to be crowdsourced because they're huge and they've got quite the backing, and a volunteer group that is, in Indianapolis or nearby, that they're always able to take advantage of. The companies that are here are able to take advantage of. They don't need that element of it. But I know crowdfunding has served very well for product release, so I completely understand why it spun to be successful for cons and starting up conventions, and because it's easy to produce. Because with Kickstarter, you have to actually provide some sort of product.
Right.
But with a con, we provide you with a ticket. That's a product. But it's a way for them to do ticket sales by finding out interest before they go through the big process of, we're going to book this. I know that's exactly what PopCon was dealing with, because the convention center is expensive.
Yeah.
It's $10,000 to $25,000 a day, depending on which side you're using and how much of it you're using.
It shocks people how expensive conventions are, because I was talking to the Fear of the Boot guys about this in December, and especially Wig Night is a lot more expensive than what people consider, because there is a lot of food there that they have to plan for, a lot of beer, and it's it's expensive. Deb?
Well, I'm going to jump onto that in regards to why ticket sales would be useful. Because your problem with crowdfunding is you don't have a target number as to who's actually going to be there. So if it is time to prep stuff, for example, food, beverages, which Fear the Con does, which is phenomenal, but I have this little niggling thing in the back of my head, like, what happens if 500 people show up because it's free? They're not going to have enough food for that. There's not enough tables in there for that. You don't know. Whereas if someone has to have a ticket, meaning, I bought my ticket, here's my ticket, I've got my seat, then there's a very definitive, it wasn't donated to me. It wasn't because 400 other people paid for it. I paid for it. This is my seat. And so there's more of a definitive, here's a number that we have to hit. I find that I appreciate a con more when I actually have to pay for it. Maybe that's just my personality and how I was raised. But if my hard-earned money went to this thing, I'm going to want to show up and I'm going to want to actually do stuff and interact and talk to the vendors and talk to people. Whereas if I didn't actually put any money out, it's like, well, whether I show up or not, I'm not out anything.
You
so
can do
whatever.
the same thing in that respect with crowdfunding, though. You can, donating to your Kickstarter, or not to Kickstarter, but, getting on Kickstarter and putting in however much, for, maybe one of their stretch goals or something, So,
I fundamentally, all we're working at doing is debating how you're getting money. Are you doing it versus ticket sales or versus crowdfunding? Mm-hmm. The biggest difference here with crowdfunding is that it becomes a choose how much you want to invest. Choose what you pay.
Yeah.
If you think the service is really good, then a lot of people who can afford it probably will pay more. And so you can create goals. And this is specifically why I like the idea of crowdfunding, is you can create goals, and then when you achieve certain points, you reduce the barrier of entry for other people so you can get that broader audience. And maybe you do things like, instead of a celebrity autograph being $50, maybe the crowdfunding option can reduce that for everybody and say, hey, we're going to pay some amount of what you expect to gain during this convention. If you'd reduce the cost to $20 instead. I dropped my hat. Just a moment.
Lance?
Okay, so as far as being the purchaser, I prefer the hard ticket for a couple of reasons. One, I've already got it in my pocket. So if something happens, as long as I have my physical ticket, I can get into whatever event it is. Number two, if I can't go, I can always give that ticket to someone who can. And if you're crowdfunding and your ticket is just your name on a logbook somewhere, I can't give you my name. I can give you my ticket. So there's that.
What about having an option to have a printable ticket?
There is that. But now we're talking about having the event do that for you. I'm talking as just the purchaser. So
have a digital ticket that you can send out to people, and it says, hey, this ticket is good for one attendee.
Okay, but then how many of those
and then
can I
you
print?
As in, like, even if you print it multiple times, it'll only scan once.
Yeah,
That's
like
the
it has
thing.
a bar.
like,
It's like it would have a bar. Like a
Ticketmaster does that all the time.
I was gonna say, yeah.
so.
If you
airport.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
airport. Yeah, if you do like pre-check-in and stuff like that.
Tickets.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
sister and brother.
Now, as an event, I would do both. I would sell physical tickets and take pre-orders for that.
Yep.
And then I would have a crowdfunding thing saying, we're going to raise this money. If you want to do more, pay into it.
That's exactly what Indie PopCon did. Indie PopCon said, we want to run this convention because there's not a pop culture convention, not a big pop culture convention in Indianapolis. We really want to do this. We really would like to do it at the convention center, but if it doesn't happen at the convention center, we can find someplace else until we can get there. This is our goal. And then they met that goal. They exceeded that goal significantly, which was awesome. And then they said, okay, for those of you who weren't able to get in on the Kickstarter, we're still selling passes because one of the, I believe it was their $45 or their $55 mark for sponsorship was a pass to attend the convention. So then they turned around and said, okay, for those of you who weren't able to get into the Kickstarter but still would like to attend, we are also doing ticket sales so then you can purchase that ticket at the door. Yep. So they already had the guaranteed space.
Or online.
Yeah. They already had the guaranteed space based on what they had raised at Kickstarter, or with their Kickstarter, and then they turned around and they said, we know that based on the people who sponsored, this is how many passes we have. We can have this many people. We need to sell passes so that they can fill that number in. I think another big difference between doing ticket sales versus doing crowdfunding that we, at least I have not heard us cover yet, is the fact that a lot of crowdfundings determine whether the event actually happens or not. Because, for example, Fear the Con 8. The goal was, we need to raise $8,000 to run this 2-day convention. If we do not raise $8,000 to run this 2-day convention, Fear the Con 7 was the last Fear the Con we're going to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There was no, well, if you can purchase a pass later on, that'll fill in the gap. No, it was all or nothing. Now, the great thing about that is, now that it's all in, it's going to happen. The bonus is that convention is now free for anyone who would like to attend that convention. And it shows that the people who have attended that convention or want to attend that convention are willing to support it enough to have it there at least one more year. And I think that is the biggest benefit of having a crowdfunding like that, is to say, we really want to do this for you because we've done it the last 7 years. However, our pockets are dry and we need your help. I know last year there was a point in time where they weren't sure if they were going to have all of the money that they needed up front for the convention. And then Derek and Adam Gottfried and a couple other people put something together. It was a GoFundMe, I believe.
Yeah.
And it actually filled in that gap very well for
some
them.
Of that gap.
Well,
it was still out of pocket, and that was the reason, that was one of the impetuses behind this.
Right. And so then you have things like the Worldwide Wing Night that they do on Thursday night. That's a stretch goal. Mm-hmm. They know, based on, and this is another thing that we haven't really looked into, they've run Fear the Con 7 years in a row. You can usually find the percentage and statistic of the amount of people on average that you have every year and how much those people spend based on how much you're having to purchase during that weekend. So if you know that they're going to go through 4 kegs of beer on Friday and 2 kegs of beer on Saturday or whatever, you already have in mind, okay, this is the overall cost for us to run this 2 days. This is what it's cost us the last 3 years or 4 years or 7 years for us to do this convention. So that's why we have a goal of $8,000, because if we hit $8,000, we know we can put on the convention that we want. And then if we want to add special things like a Worldwide Wing Night, that's going to cost more. So that's a stretch goal. That's to say, if you really want, okay, we have the con. We really want to run this con. You really want us to run this con. That's awesome. If you really want bonus stuff, then you have to hit these goals. If you don't, no big deal. We're still doing the con. And so I feel like what that gives is a security to know, sweet, the convention's going on, but now the stress of us having to do Worldwide Wing Night is not there because we didn't hit that goal. Well, that's all right. There's nothing that says we can't all still get together on Thursday night and have dinner. That just means we're all ponying up and paying for our own dinner together versus somebody else taking the brunt of the cost.
I think, and from our perspective, when you have to travel all the way from Indianapolis to St. Louis, you're talking about spending hundreds of dollars on the trip, for the weekend. So when you already have that guarantee that your admission is already going to be free, that's one less expense that you have to try and, take into consideration when it comes to traveling expenses.
Go ahead, Derek.
Actually, I don't remember what.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all your fault, Josh.
Go ahead, Ragaar.
Well,
Ragaar
I really think that this crowdfunding thing and the ticket, using them combination even, it's all bounded by how creative you are and how good are you at product planning.
Yeah.
For instance, with Gen Con, I think they're probably missing out on an opportunity here.
I think
They could have their own internally hosted crowdfunding service and then maybe set up a deal of various ticket agencies through airlines and say, hey, if you give us X amount, we'll guarantee you a seat on a domestic flight.
That would
or a hotel room.
Well, I know if you guys remember when we talked to him last year. No,
No,
What?
I'm shaking my head because I don't want to get put in a Gen Con queue to determine where I'm, whether or not I'm going to be able to fly in Indianapolis.
Well, you don't have to fly to Indianapolis.
That would be part of the
At least not until-
Kickstarter.
never mind.
There would be a guaranteed number of.
That would be very difficult, just depending on where you are in the world or in the country. Even if you just did continental.
I think that as
Well,
far
if
as
you-
their crowdfunding is concerned, they could do something like stretch goals versus the discount that you could get for a ticket.
We could do crowdfunding for Gen Con swag bags.
There's that.
That would be
That would be
awesome.
good.
It needs it.
Yeah,
badly.
If you guys remember when we did our show with Tracy last year on Wednesday night, he talked about putting together with a couple other people a database to be able to do that pre-Gen Con or pre-con crowdfunding reservation
Being able
for
to line up.
right having a virtual queue where you're not worried about your badge. You've already got your badge, you've already got your travel, you've already got your hotel room. You are Derek Knutsen and you are booked. But then you are the best at getting everything done in 3 hours as far as travel, stay, your con badge and everything like that.
A lot of practice.
Oh, I know it does.
Had a lot of practice.
I know,
for this.
and I'm complimenting
for Disney.
I'm complimenting you.
That's what I-
Yeah, I'm complimenting you both on that. You guys are great planners. I am a horrible planner. Which
That's
is
why
why
we say, Don, just
which is why
do this
right
and do that.
right which is why I take the direction of my friends when it comes to a lot of things, and then when it comes to other things, I'm just like, screw it, let's see what happens. So which is in itself amusing. But for example, oh Lord, I lost where I was going.
Thought.
I did. Did you see it? It just went right out my ear.
Derek's fully planned and ready to go.
He is fully planned and ready to go. I don't remember.
That didn't help?
No.
So for the
Anyway.
established fact that we need to talk to Derek and Deb for planning
Yes.
our Kickstarter.
That's right.
And then get
That's
us
right.
together with Josh to buy the tickets online so that there's not just this massive amount of people
Right.
trying to do it.
Oh, okay. So,
There we go.
did you see how it came back? It came back. It was just it was
say it
messing
before it
with
goes
me.
away again.
That's right. So, I think it would be really cool to see a crowdfunding for. I don't think it's necessary for a convention like Gen Con or like San Diego Comic Con or Wizard World Comic Con or any of these big PAX. You don't have to have a crowdfunding because people are already going to show up. They already have a budget from last year that they are planning on using for this year. That's how those work. We made so much money on this last year's con that we're going to be able to expand next year's con based on our profits. That's how a good business, a successful business works. Is they take their money and they already have in the cost how much it's going to take to run that next con. However, for something like a virtual queue, I think that would be a really cool opportunity for us to say, hey, I really want to make sure that I get, Slugfest Games is only going to be releasing 200 copies of Red Dragon N5. I really want to make sure I get my copy of Red Dragon N5. And then plugging in your whatever it is to get that. You got somebody showing up at your house there, Ragaar?
It's the background noise. I keep yelling out the window, telling them to stop running the sirens, but they don't listen to me.
Okay, well, leave us alone. We're trying to do
one
a
of those
podcast.
things, one of those areas that would be good to fund is like if you're exhibiting at a con.
Yeah, absolutely.
Printing and producing physical copies is very expensive, and so there are a lot of logistics that people just don't consider when you're exhibiting at conventions.
Yeah.
For instance, one of the surprises that I found last year when I exhibited at GamerX was sales tax and handling sales tax out of state. So you have to, as a business, register as a sales tax entity in the state that you are exhibiting at. Like California last year, Ohio this year for me when I'm going to Origins. And you have to call the tax department directly. You can't actually call the convention because they don't know.
Wow.
Which really blew me away.
Yeah.
Gosh.
A lot of that though is really at the local state level or the federal level with how they manage all of that.
Well, because then
It's
you get
not really necessarily their fault, but it is extra complexity that you have to add into the administrative.
Well,
costs.
you would imagine with however many years Origins has been
yeah.
in business, or Gen Con's been in business, or any convention's been in business, and you'd think that they would be asked this before.
You'd think.
That's a good point too. Put together an FAQ of best practices.
That's one of the things that I want to do is put together an exhibiting or FAQ, because for people who are new, they may not even think about. Well, I need a sales tax, or I need to collect sales tax out of state, and I just know it because I worked near the tax agency. So
well, because then you have to I mean, and now this is kind of going on a completely different side note, but legally you would have to find out, okay, well, I'm going to be paying income taxes in my city, in my state. So do I need to then claim that was received as a resident of this county? Or when you fill out your tax forms, it says, what county do you work in? What county do you live in? Because there are different taxes that you have to taxes that you have to allot for based on those two factors. And so then, I mean, if you're a California company or a Seattle company coming in for Gen Con, which is not uncommon, or if you're an international company coming in from Gen Con, that's a whole nother ball of wax, because then you have to pay taxes in the U.S. and possibly taxes
import tax.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. So, that's definitely I think that's definitely a concern for people who are exhibiting or who are putting on conventions and things like that. Is
you also have to. I mean, when you're thinking about publishing your work. A lot of the printing companies are in China. So you have to worry about how long it takes to transport and then get it through customs. That was a huge problem at Gen Con last year.
And then if they
they're stuck in customs.
Yes.
Yeah. And then if they, while they're transporting your board games and books from the ship to the dock, they lose it and drop it into the ocean.
That would be horrible.
The truck between the ship and
that's true.
I do remember that happening, though. I don't remember when it was. Maybe like Red Hat Games or something, but I do remember that.
Well,
a bunch of shipments were delayed.
Dead of Winter is a newer game that just recently came out, and that's exactly what happened to them. They lost a large portion of their initial run because when they were transporting it from the ship to the dock, they ended up losing it into the water.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, which is why the game went for those who were able to actually get a copy of it, went on eBay from $65, which is MSRP, to I think I've seen it for $97 to $130 online, because that's the only way you can get it right now.
Holy bleepy pants!
Yeah.
Right. That was for you, Josh. So you don't have to use Mario.
So,
but another thing, I mean, why don't we just go into this?
Go Derek.
So going into the exhibiting, one thing that Lance and I noticed at GamerX was having two people at a table is very useful.
At least.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
At least.
Well, that's something that we experienced at Indie PopCon last year. Was having 3 to 4 people at the table that we had, which ended up turning into tables that we had.
Right.
because I don't know what the rules
I
are.
was there.
I don't know what
I
the
was so
rules are,
happy
but
about
when
it.
the people who are sitting next to you on both sides decide to leave, I'm sorry, I'm going to abscond your tables.
Absolutely.
These are now my tables.
Openly leave within the first day or two.
Day or two. So, but yeah, I mean, we had at one time we had 4 people, and it was really nice because 2 of the people could sit at the table and talk to people, and then we had the table that was adjacent to our primary table where we could actually sit down with a couple other people and play games with people
Or do interviews.
and do interviews and meet people and do actual plays and I think that honestly, and I know this is not necessarily that it's not necessarily the topic of conversation, but it's a part of the topic, is making sure that you have the appropriate equipment, whether that be employees or, if you're selling something, that's something else that you have to take into account. Like, okay, I'm crowdfunding this booth, but I really want to give away swag. How much is that swag going to cost me? And
yeah.
do I add that into the cost, or then do I just soak it out of pocket later on? I mean, that's something that you deal with every year when we do the Fear the Charity stuff, is you put prize packs together for stuff. Well, that money comes from somewhere.
Yes.
And it's not anybody else's account except yours. So then, you have to, okay, well, do I take this into consideration? Do I hold on to my receipts and use it as a charitable donation later on when I itemize my taxes? Do I just say, screw it, it was, $700 and it went to a good cause? I mean, it's a balancing act.
The dirty little secret of Fear the Charity is that because most of the donations come through me, I use that as a tax write-off.
Yeah, well, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's legal. But that's something else that people have to take into consideration. Crit Confirm last year at Indie PopCon, they had huge booth, lots of really cool stuff going on, and they had they had swag that they were giving away and swag that they were selling, and all of those things are factors that you have to take in when you're exhibiting at a convention versus just running a convention. So, Lance?
Another lesson that we learned about it when we were at GamerX was that the more you have, the more money you'll make into your booth.
Right.
Yep.
If you have a one-trick pony booth where this is all I have, you're going to make money off of that. But if you have, say, just some dice, people that may not necessarily want your game might just buy novelty dice.
Yeah,
so
that's
you're
true.
going to make an extra $1 or so.
But that's what brings them into the booth.
Right.
That was one of the lessons I learned from another exhibitor there, was you need to have the diversity of products.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think as a vendor, you're responsible for your setup and breakdown of your booth. It's almost a necessity to have at least one extra person there, because if you have to, take a bathroom break in the middle of the convention, then who's going to watch your table?
Which is well advised for you to take a bathroom break.
And
Please.
get food.
Get food and actually use the restroom.
So, but I think that's almost a mandatory thing. Like, you almost need that extra help to go, all right, sit here for about 10 minutes while I go to the restroom and I'll be right back. Or, hang out for 30 minutes so that I can go get some food,
But
Yeah.
there's something important to that, is to make sure that the person that you're leaving there is able to cover for you.
Yeah, that's true.
That's absolutely
I've
true.
had a situation where I've sat down somewhere and it's like the guy who's there doesn't have any idea of what's going on. It's like, well, stuff and things. I don't really know how this game works, but the person that was here will be back in another 10 minutes.
That's a
That's
fail.
definitely annoying.
I'm not going to wait for that.
Right.
Yeah, no one at a convention is going to wait 10 minutes for a vendor to come by.
No.
That you're not even sure you're
Because
going to
when
be
they come by your booth, they're interested in you right then. And if you don't grab them right then, you've lost them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you don't know how to handle a convention crowd, you're in trouble.
Even if you're interested and you take their card and you're like, I'll be back. I've done this multiple times.
Yeah, it's
Countless.
It just doesn't happen.
you never get back.
No.
You
Right.
never get back. I've done that as a podcaster. When you have that, hey, there's 4 people at my booth. I would really love to go and walk around the exhibit hall because I have been in this booth for the last 3 days. You know what I mean? Like, I want an hour to just kind of cruise. You go by booths and you're like, wow, this is really cool stuff. I would love to, talk to you guys about this product on our podcast, or I'd love to be able to sit down and play this game with you guys and demo. I'll be back. And you never get back. And it's not that you don't want to get back there. It's just that you're in that. I just want to cruise through the exhibit hall, see what's fun, and then I got to get back to my booth. And,
or even
Time management.
yeah, exactly.
Or even I barely had enough time to get to the convention center before it
Right.
closed.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Lance?
Go ahead, Lance.
I went to
Sorry.
Comic-Con this year.
Oh, you're good.
And I was speaking with one of the artists, and he says that most of the conventions he goes to, you have between 3 and 5 seconds to get someone's attention at your booth, and that's if they just walk by.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a nice big, background, maybe they'll look at you a little earlier, but you have between 3 and 5 seconds to get their attention and get them to you.
Yeah.
And that's without your product. That's just grabbing their attention. Once you get their attention, then you have their attention for maybe 15 seconds.
Yeah.
That's the standard. If you're engaging enough, maybe they'll listen longer. But otherwise, they're looking forward to that next thing because they didn't come to look at your booth. They came to do something else. They're
Right.
just walking through an
Right.
area looking for something. So that 3 to 5 seconds is the most important. Then that 15-second elevator chat.
Oh, yeah.
is most important for the presenters.
Well, and one thing as a salesperson that you learn very quickly that translates into exhibiting is not being afraid to put yourself out there, even if you look ridiculous. Because one thing that I noticed, not only running a booth at a convention, but also working in sales and retail and direct sales and retail, not like, oh, this person called me for a product. Like, I'm going out there and I'm talking to you about these products that you're looking at already. Was you have to establish, even for just those 5 seconds, you have to establish trust and a relationship with that